What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? Hope you guys are ready for the new year, 2020. We're gonna get it rolling. We got it going on really this week. We had William Lane Craig. I was thinking Daniel Craig for some fucking reason. William Lane Craig at the beginning, and then at the beginning of the week, and then we had Erica to round us out for the weekend. But tonight we have Kent Hovind, whale penis man himself. Tonight, he is going to be attempting to refute the Big Bang Theory, but as we'll see, he bundles up a lot of things into this. So it's not really anything, I guess, new as far as tactics go for Kent. But he does ask some really good questions that I want to, educate some people on in case they don't know, because I had to learn a lot of things today, and it was basically a crash course in like quantum fucking theory. So here's hoping I don't fuck up too bad. Anyways, if you guys are ready for Kent Hovind and his whale peen, then please stay tuned. Here's Kent Hovind thinking about his life choices. Well, I guess technically his future life choices as prisoner 06452-017, whatever the fuck. This is before his inmate time in the clink. So, this is pre-hardened Kent Hovind, but as we all know, post-jail Kent Hovind is just as much as a dipshit as pre-jail. Kent Hovind. So tonight we are going to be going over the Big Bang Theory. Not just the Big Bang Theory, obviously. We're going to be going over multiple different things that play into the Big Bang Theory and what happened prior to, the Earth being here, that kind of stuff. So Kent is apparently talking at a college, I believe it is, and obviously he's going to be spouting a lot of bullshit. Again, don't expect anything new. This is an old video, but it was posted relatively recently. Urban Imposter says 06452-017 doesn't know what a theory is. No, he doesn't. He doesn't know what science is either, but he's going to prove that tonight. All right. I press play.
If the Big Bang Theory is true, then I would like to know what exploded and where did it come from and where did the energy come from and where did the space come from for the matter to expand into, and where did the organization come from and where did the information come from?
All right, before those are a lot of questions. Like, he always loves starting off with a gish gallop of questions. So, good on you for sticking to your stick of a gish gallop, but I'm not sure what you mean by information. What information are you talking about here? It's basically you're just talking nonsense when you get to that point, which is pretty normal for you, I have to say. We got Who's Your Buddy saying, my prediction is that Kent isn't going to misrepresent or lie about anything dealing with science. Oh, you are going to be wrong. By the way, I'm drinking Jack Daniel's apple whiskey tonight, and it is delicious. All right. So let's start off with one of the good questions that he asked. What exploded? The best guess that I can come up with for what he's talking about here is cosmic inflation as being what exploded or what, grew. But this cosmic inflation led to the Big Bang, which maybe is what he's talking about, like exploding because he doesn't understand what the Big Bang Theory is. But cosmic inflation is the point in time when the universe grew by a factor of 10 to the 26. That is exponential, right? And here's the thing. It did it in 10 to the negative 32 seconds. Fucking small, right? So the short answer is everything exploded everywhere. Because at that point, the universe was really infinitesimally small. So everything exploded everywhere, if you want to think about it like that. It takes a little bit more explaining to actually dive into the details of this. So prior to what we would consider the Big Bang, the universe was very hot, dense, but also infinitesimally small. In fact, it was so hot and dense that, there were no quarks or anything. So about 400,000 years is when atoms started to form. But at about 200,000 years, that's when like quarks and stuff started to form. So you have to understand that it was so extremely hot that not even quarks could exist at that point, right? So the best scientific theory we have to explain this particular period in our origin story is which is one that best fits the current observations and all of the information that we see or that we have. At the beginning, there was a quantum field that existed called the inflaton field. And these quantum fields are how we explain the underlying structure of reality. These quantum fields can also hold vast amounts of energy without having any particles in them. This field was at a non-zero vacuum. These fields were at a non-zero vacuum state. Vacuum states are the state at which these fields are at like a zero energy, right? But the problem is that with it being a non-zero vacuum state, it is a false vacuum, and these are typically the vacuums that we can create anywhere here on Earth, because it's a non-zero vacuum state. When it reaches like an actual vacuum state, crazy things happen. But in any case, these non-zero vacuum states can still hold an electrical charge, and it can hold vast amounts of energy, like the inflaton field. So this quantum field, the inflaton field, fuels the expansion of the universe because of the vast amount of energy that is stored in that infinitesimally small amount of space. Because it's got all that energy there, it expands the universe 10 to the 26 times its size in less than 10 to the negative 32 seconds. That's huge, right? What's going on in the quantum field at this particular point is that it's at the non-zero vacuum state, right? The false vacuum. It's there, and then when inflation stops and the Hubble inflation starts, which is the inflation of the universe that we observe now, at that point, the quantum value, the value of the scalar field, which is what the quantum field is, it randomly changes value, right? And so at one point it gets over the hump, or it goes over the side of something, and it falls into a true vacuum state. Zero. It gets down there. But weird things happen at this point, because while inflation stops, as the quantum field drops, it leaves behind these particles called inflaton particles. And they're just evenly distributed throughout the universe at that point in time. And then they sort of transform into the matter that we have now. So, given, Einstein's equations and everything like that, you have the energy state is just transforming from one state to another state. That one state was the inflaton particles, and then it transforms into regular matter. So, that's all that happens up to the 10 to the negative 30, I think it's 10 to the negative 30 seconds into the universe. It happens faster than that, right? So we can see the heat, sorry, I got ahead of myself. So once that matter forms from the inflaton particles, the amount of energy that's released and the matter is at such high energy state, such high heat, that it causes the universe to start to reheat. And so for the longest time, it was reheating the universe, and that's what we have with the cosmic microwave background radiation. It's the inflation theory explains why the CMB looks the way that it does, and the inflation theory explains a lot of questions that we have about the early universe. So, all of that is a background knowledge for kind of what he's talking about here and what he doesn't understand. Now, the next question, where did the space come from? Well, it's a result from the inflaton field remaining at a high energy state, and it's tremendously slowed down when the field reaches its true vacuum state. And at that point, the exponential inflation stops, but the normal inflation, or the Hubble inflation that we see, it starts back. It starts. Like, we're still expanding, just a lot slower. So, next question. Where did the energy come from? We don't know. But the best guess right now is that it was always there, because due to the laws of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created or destroyed. Just at the beginning of the universe, there was so much energy compacted into that infinitesimally small point that when the universe initially expanded, at that exponential rate, and then the inflaton particles they transformed from one energy state to another energy state. So it's always been there. The energy's always been there. Now, finally, where did the organization come from? And I really don't know what he means by this. Because are you talking about how the atoms and other elementary particles formed? How solar systems formed and all of these other items in the universe, all these other objects? The inflaton particles transformed into standard particles that we have now after the quantum field reached its true vacuum state. The inflation theory explains how matter is evenly distributed across the universe. Now, that's only if that's what you mean by that it being organized, if it being evenly distributed across the universe. So we got another super chat from Vandalia. Honey, is it Vandalia? Oh shit, she's not here. Vandalia, 1998. I'll never get that right. The Butcher says, Kent is disingenuous for profit. He knows what he is saying is wrong. Yep. Okay. So it really depends on what he means by organization, but he's always vague when it comes to these kinds of questions. All right, continue.
A whole host of questions that are a whole lot harder for you to answer than, in the beginning, God.
Oh, well, fucking shit! Sorry, I'm going to take a drink every time he's a fucking idiot, because that's what he is. Obviously, by saying, oh, well, in the beginning, God, it's always a lot easier to just say God did it than to actually explain the process. Or for you to just do some basic reading. Because I'm fairly certain at this point in time, you could have done the basic reading for the inflation theory and you would have known about it, because it's been a theory since like the late 70s or so.
Where's information come from? This universe is not just random molecules circulating around. I mean, it carries information. Just like a book is so much more than ink on a paper, it carries information. And the DNA is more than just chemicals. It's information. So the evolutionist never answers the question, where did this information come from? Where did the energy come from? Where did the matter itself come from?
Well, luckily, we've already explained these particular questions in, the first 20 minutes of this video. So we really don't have to go over the last few questions that he has. But I would like to say that DNA doesn't contain information like he's trying to make it out to be. DNA is a chemical, and therefore it reacts like other chemicals react. It's governed by the laws of physics and the law of chemistry, and we can interpret it as code. We can, notice sequences of different chemicals, and then we can use those sequences to predict what will happen when those sequences are there. But in actuality, those are not like digital codes. Just because we can interpret them as code or interpret them in a way that allows us to predict their nature or their effect on an organism doesn't mean that they're actual information. Also, a very curious thing to notice here is that he never defines what information is. Like, what do you mean by information? He will never define it, and he'll just, ambiguously say information. We got a few super chats. From Arduin, I think Kent thinks it looks organized, but that's pretty much our perception because we like to see patterns. That's also a very astute observation there, Arduin. And then we got Kirsten Kennerson, who says, I'll join you in taking a drink every time he is an idiot. I could use a good drunk after the holidays. Quentin says, the Godless engineer, lawyers have informed me they are not liable for alcohol poisoning caused by drinking every time Kent says something stupid. Good point.
And you gripe about my belief. I believe by faith in the beginning God. I know, I admit I don't understand that. But you believe hundreds of things by faith. You don't even understand that you're believing by faith. You think matter is either eternal or can create itself.
So, I don't believe anything that I've said so far in this particular live stream has been by faith. Like, I don't accept those things because of faith. He needs me to accept these things by faith so that he can put the scientific theories on par with religion, is what he's trying to do here. The behavior of quantum fields has been adequately demonstrated. And the hypotheses surrounding origins of the universe are our best explanations given the evidence and given our observations. If something changes, we change our understanding to match our new, we change our information, what we know about the universe, to better match what reality presents itself as. Energy is eternal, as far as we can tell. The inflaton particles that were left behind after the quantum inflaton field reached its true vacuum state then transformed into what we now identify as just regular matter. But it did that using the energy that already existed at the beginning of the universe. This is congruent with how we understand reality to work. That is not faith, that's just called being rational. By the way, we're less than a minute into this video.
What's the two choices? How did matter get here? The world is here. Where did the matter come from? Did it just happen by itself, or is it all just imaginary? We're not really here at all. You're faced with the option of, we're not really here, this is all just our imagination, or it had a beginning, or matter is eternal, which is both of the second two options are in violation of the obvious laws of thermodynamics. Matter doesn't create itself, and everything degrades over time.
All right. So right here, right off the bat, I like how he tries to build a false dichotomy by saying, what are the two options here? But immediately presents three different options. I mean, it's still kind of a false, it's not a dichotomy because you're not just presenting two, but it is a false set of choices that you have here. But in any case, the first law of thermodynamics does not say that matter cannot be created or destroyed. It says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed into different versions of energy, and because they degrade over time, that the entropy of that energy increases when it transforms into a different form. That's what happened when all of that energy at the very beginning of the universe, when it got transformed into regular matter, entropy increased at that point. So nothing that I have said actually violates the law of thermodynamics. So the current best model for the origin of the universe doesn't violate these laws. The energy at the beginning of the universe degraded and oh wait shit already I got ahead of myself in my script or not my script but my notes here. But the current universe did have a beginning, and there is no useful purpose in assuming solipsism, which is the idea that we can't know if we're just imagining this or if we're a brain in a vat. That's what Seitan Bergenkate is really known for. There's nothing there's no usefulness in assuming that or saying that, because we're still presented with the reality that we're presented with. So that particular route has no fruit. So we're gonna let him continue.
So either it had a beginning or it didn't. If it had a beginning, then what was before the beginning? I mean, there's so many thousands of things you take by faith. I say in the beginning God, and you say, well, this matter somehow either was always here or created itself, and then this matter somehow became alive, and then this first living thing learned how to reproduce, and then it learned how to make something other than its kind. I mean, even though nobody's ever seen that, nobody's ever seen a dog produce a non-dog. Or you mentioned about, the fact that a wolf and a fox and a dog coming from a common ancestor off Noah's Ark in only 4,400 years. For heaven's sake, you believe they came from a rock. I mean, come on. I don't think my theory is that silly at all.
Yes, Kent, your theory is silly. It's silly as fuck. So, in that entire rant there, he confused, the Big Bang Theory, the inflation theory, abiogenesis, biogenesis, or abiogenesis, evolution. He conflates so many different scientific theories together. But he does this because that's what his book tells him. His book tells him that all of these things are one idea, but it's really not, okay? These are different concepts, especially in science. But he did ask what was before the beginning, and I think that's a very interesting question. And I'm assuming that he means before the beginning of time, or before the initial expansion of the universe. How we experience time now was created by the Big Bang, or in the inflation time before the Big Bang. But we're not exactly sure how it existed prior to that, because the general theory of relativity only operates in the current version of our universe. General relativity breaks down when we get to quantum levels, which is what the universe started out as, being in a quantum sort of state. It was infinitesimally small, so general relativity wouldn't really been able to describe that situation. The inflation model gives us the best idea of how the Big Bang started, but what happened before that point doesn't have an effect on what occurred after that point. There are a lot of ideas out there surrounding what could have possibly happened prior to the Big Bang. Like, could time have run backwards, or, do black holes, because time gets, it's black holes are so dense and so powerful that they even suck time into their center. Does that create another bubble universe in our own universe? These are questions that aren't answered, but they are questions that have come up. So there are a varying amount of things that could have happened before the Big Bang, but it really doesn't matter what happened before the Big Bang, because it only matters what happens afterward.
So, if my answer to your question is still the same, I believe in the beginning God. I do take that by faith. Here's the major difference that I don't think you're going to understand. I admit mine is a religion. They do not admit theirs is a religion. They want you to think what they believe is science, and all of you should pay for their religion to be taught in this university. And that's the situation we have today, and that's unfortunate.
Okay. Sorry, I gotta take another. It's lubricant to prevent the stupid from hitting me all at once. So the definition of religion is highly debated even among academics today. It's curious that he's not explicitly defining what he means by religion. He's just he's banking on people using what their concept of religion is and applying it to what he's talking about here, instead of him explicitly defining what he means by religion. But I think that what we can do is we can kind of glean what he means when he says religion. To him, religion violates the natural order of reality. He also has no actual evidence for his religion, and he believes that he believes in his religion regardless of what the evidence shows us. Luckily, science is none of these things. It doesn't match up with any of these particular points about religion. Scientific theories and laws have mountains of evidence behind them, and if they are proven insufficient to describe our reality, then we can change them so that they better explain our reality as we experience it. They cannot violate the natural order of things because that is its purpose, is to describe the natural order of things. And the backbone of the scientific method is evidence, so there's no way that it can disregard evidence that it uses to build its whole view of reality. By all accounts, science is not by all accounts, science, let alone individual theories, simply cannot be a religion.
Fortunate. There have always been situations where the majority taught something. I mean, in the Soviet Union 15 years ago, if you stood up and said, hey kids, I don't believe in communism, I think capitalism is a better system, you would be in Siberia if you survived. And here in Emory University, if you stood up in your classroom and said, I don't believe this evolution theory is true, I think it's pretty obvious there must have been a designer to this system, you would be in intellectual Siberia. You would lose your job. It has happened to hundreds of teachers, just simply for standing up and say, look, I think the evidence is here, folks. There must have been a designer.
This is some really overdramatic bullshit, right? So, we did have another super chat. Bricklayer says, is underage drinking okay in this case? I don't know how old you are. I don't want to know how old you are. I'm not going to condone underage drinking at all, but, you know, I don't control your life, so. Don't drink and drive, kids. Demonetized. So the Soviet Union did have a massive population transfer that happened in the early 20th century. Basically, the Soviets were deporting undesirables, which scarily sounds like, the shit that Trump is trying to pull with ICE and the Border Patrol and his bans on travel from certain shithole countries or whatever. It sounds scarily like that when you read about it. But basically it comes down to this. If you're teaching at a public school or you're funded by public money in some kind of way, then you simply cannot teach religion. Since science fundamentally cannot be a religion, science gets taught in the classrooms. It's a basic standard for education in anywhere, teaching science. Religion is not science, therefore it doesn't belong in the classroom, especially when it's funded by public money. So yeah, if you're a public teacher and you start talking about religion in a science classroom, then you're more than likely going to get fired. If you're at a college, that's really up to the college as to what they do, but you cannot teach religion in a biology class as if religion has some kind of idea about biology. Religion is theology, and that's where it should stay. Theology. If you want your kids to learn about creationism and learn false things about our reality, take them to Sunday school. They'll teach them all that shit. Of course, you got to take them to the right fundamentalist church, I guess, to get taught in Sunday school how evolution's false and everything like that, but I mean, you can go there. And if you're a college professor and you want to teach about creationism, you can go and work at a Christian college. There are plenty of them around, accredited and unaccredited. But basically, it boils down to we have standards in this country, and those standards rule out creationism from being taught to our kids because it's been shown in court to not be a scientific concept. We got another super chat from Who's Your Buddy saying, I'll accept his assertion that science is a religion. Then I demand that we only teach the religion that is most congruent with reality. Science still wins. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't go as far as to bend to Kent Hovind on this, but I see where you're going with it.
If I asked you to explain how computers came to be, but you cannot use man as your answer, I only want a purely naturalistic explanation for the origin of computers. Purely naturalistic. The answer has to lie within the computer. How did these molecules get together? How did this data get together? How did these plastic molecules come together and the different silicon chips? How did it happen? Your answer has to lie in the computer. I've already eliminated the only obvious answer to the problem at the beginning by my definition.
Okay. So, hold on. Drink for one. For two, this is a nonsensical question because obviously you can't compare a designed object with an undesigned object and then limit the designed object in its explanation for being that it was designed by some intelligent being or something like that, the computer. But what we can do, so we can definitely take that designed object and we can compare it to an undesigned object, like the human body, and see and really highlight how undesigned that particular object is. So, like I said, the human body, it's completely undesigned by God. It has a lot of vestigial things that don't make sense for us to have now. Take wisdom teeth, for example. Wisdom teeth in the human body would be a lot like having another 4 prongs on the power cable running to your power unit in your tower. What the fuck purpose would that serve? If anybody designed a power cord like that or a power system, like what the fuck? Like that's not good design. There's no reason for the extra prongs on that motherfucker, right? Wait, you want more? Take nipples on a man. The fuck are these for right here? You guys can't see. What are these for, huh? On a guy. It's a lot like putting 2 extra power buttons on your tower. You push them to turn them on. And then appendix. An appendix is like bundling a 5 1/4 inch floppy disk to your tower now. Like putting that motherfucker in there and expecting people to use it. I mean, it might have been useful at one time in the past, but now it's pretty useless. And then you've also got like sinuses. Those are like the extra hard drive bays that you either don't have money to fill or you don't have a power, the cords, the internal cords to be able to connect all of the hard drives to that motherfucker. So, you know, it's kind of like I only need the one. Then I got externals that I can do, right? Anyways, the point is that it's a false analogy to compare a designed object to an undesigned object and then tie our hands behind our back with saying, but you can't just point to the intelligent designer that designed that particular object. In this case, humans designing computers. This entire analogy doesn't make sense. We got Teresa Ferris saying, so by Kent's premise about computers, does this mean Steve Jobs is my god? Isn't he everybody's god?
They're trying to eliminate the only logical answer to the question by their definition of science. They want to define science as things that we can observe and test and demonstrate in the natural world. Okay, well then that eliminates both evolution and creation. Both are unobserved. We don't see anything change. We don't see anything created from nothing.
You know, I feel like this is just an admission that his God doesn't exist in reality. I mean, he's bitching about the fact that we require empirical evidence for shit that we say, exists in reality. But if his God doesn't exist in reality, then there's no empirical evidence. So, fuck you, atheist. Checkmate, motherfuckers. But you see, if God, as defined in the Bible, actually exists, then we should have some kind of way of detecting him existing. We should have some kind of empirical evidence to show that he exists. We got Salt Lake Seattleite saying, I want to explain a straw man using the only straw man. Using only the straw man, sorry. That good observation. Excuse me. So, he can't provide empirical evidence for his God because he has to have faith that his God exists, because his God doesn't actually present in reality. That kind of thinking leads you down dangerous roads, like praying to God to heal your child who has diabetes, and instead of giving them medicine or taking them to the hospital, you just let them die from something that you can literally buy at the pharmacy, inject into them, and they'll be fine. But you pray to God that he'll cure him, but he doesn't. I fucking hate parents like that, if you can't tell. I've got diabetes. Fuck those parents. Anyways.
Here's the problem. Both creation and evolution are religious. I admit mine's a religion. They don't admit theirs is a religion. And all of us are paying for their religion to be taught in the school system. And I, for one, resent that. So my answer is still the same. God did it.
Obviously, your answer's still the same. We've already covered the whole evolution is a religion kind of argument, so I'm not going to repeat myself here. But, I mean, it's just so funny how his main argument in this entire video is that he believes in God, therefore God did everything. And that's his only evidence that he has, but he was able to bullshit us for a good 4 minutes. And that's all he's ever going to have. That's all creationism ever has, is just saying, well, God did it. That's every time you ask a creationist question, that's what it boils down to. God did it. I challenge you, next time you're in a conversation with somebody who thinks that the earth is really young, or the earth or evolution isn't true and creationism's true, all you got to do is ask them the right questions, and it all boils down to, well, God wanted it that way. That's all you got to do. And it's kind of sad that it gets to that point and people are still convinced by it, but you have apologists like Kent Hovind up there, who likes to spread all of this bad information just everywhere. It's sickening. Whew. All right. Well, that's going to be it for Kent Hovind. What the fuck? All of these creationists sort of blend together at some point. I can't wait for him to get really dark hair and look like a fucking ape. Well, I mean, he's already an ape, obviously. Just saying, he looks more like an ape. Are you okay? So that's going to be it for Kent tonight. I hope that you guys will subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We're about to go into the Skeptic Mafia comments. If you want to join the Skeptic Mafia, just smash that join link right there, and you too can become part of the Skeptic Mafia. I'm sure that the Mafia members are going to do all my shilling here in a minute, but for those of you that are going to be leaving out, or you're watching this on the replay, I hope that you heathens have a great night. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice, and we will see you heathens next Friday.